Hi, I'm Sam Rosenfarb. Welcome to another edition of the White Collar Crime Report. Tonight I'm glad to welcome Seton Hall law professor, former public advocate for the state of New Jersey, and current president of the Hispanic National Bar Association, the Honorable Wilfredo Caraballo. Wilfredo, tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, let's see. I was born in Puerto Rico, raised in New York, studied in the New York City public school system. One point, thought I'd like to become a priest and tried that out for a little while.
How old were you when you got to New York City?
I was actually 3 years old.
Oh. So you don't remember very much of Puerto Rico?
Well, actually not prior to that point, but subsequently I went down and lived for a year, and I go down every year to visit the family, so pretty close ties and connections to Puerto Rico.
What happened to your aspirations of the priesthood?
They got sidetracked.
Yeah.
I thought I'd find happiness in other ventures in life.
And you chose the law?
Yeah, I had always actually wanted to be a lawyer. I had this dream at one point of combining the priesthood with law. You know, there's something called canon lawyers.
Sure.
Who are lawyers within the church. And that's what I thought I'd wind up doing by combining both.
Sounds very fascinating. Where'd you go to school?
Well, law school, I went to NYU in New York.
College?
I went to City College, and then I went to the seminaries where I got my degree from.
Well,
St. Joseph Seminary.
City College is a great school. I went to Queens College, which is
part
of the City University.
Yeah.
And you were a consultant to Queens College also.
I was a consultant, yeah, to their law school. Yeah, they opened up a new law school a bunch of years ago, and they wanted some experienced teachers to help them in putting together their commercial curriculum, and I was hired to help them out a little bit.
First as a graduate and then as a consultant.
Well, that's part of the graduate city system. Yeah, it was nice to be able to go back that way.
Tell our viewers about the Hispanic National Bar Association. What is that?
Sure. Well, it's a professional organization of lawyers. We have in this country approximately 18,000 lawyers, Latino lawyers on the mainland, and we have another 8,000 in Puerto Rico. And our organization is a national organization which seeks to bring together the Latino lawyers in a way that would help us advocate for, one, our professional growth and needs, and two, on behalf of our community, the kinds of things that a lot of us went to law school for.
Yeah, how many lawyers are there in the country?
Jesus, I think close to a million or so, I think is the number.
A million lawyers?
Yeah.
And what kind of activities does the Hispanic National Bar Association involve itself in?
Well, I'll give you an example. The most recent activity that we've been involved in is trying to secure an appointment to the Supreme Court of the United States for a Hispanic.
Yeah, I recently read about your endeavors in trying to do that and your anger at President Clinton for not appointing a Hispanic.
Yeah, we actually thought it was our turn. I mean, you know, and I use that phrase quite intentionally. A lot of people get upset at the idea that any particular ethnic group might try to lay claim to a seat.
It sounds like you're saying there should be quotas on the Supreme Court.
Well, it's interesting. It's when you've had your turn at the plate, it's easier to say, well, why do you want your turn? The fact of the matter is, this country has always been about diversity. It's been about the fact that everybody gets their opportunity to make their mark. You know, if you look back in history, the Puritans left England because their own diversity was not appreciated in England. They came here, and as each group has come in, the Irish, the Italians, the Swedes, they've all tried to get and mark their place in history. It wasn't until recently that we had our first Italian. Italian community was very happy.
Right.
We've had first women.
Understandably so.
Well, that's the point.
Right.
Why then can't 25 to 30 million people who've been here for hundreds of years, by the way, the only people that were here before Hispanics were the Native Americans, why can't we start saying, hey, it's time to see our face on that bench? It's not about quotas, it's about quality. But the fact is, quality can be found everywhere, and we think we've got a lot of quality to offer.
Well, maybe just about politics and not...
Well, that's what we're finding out. I mean, you know, it's one of the things that perhaps we've been a little, I wouldn't say naive, but trusting. We've really thought that the powers that be, as it were, understood and understand what the beauty of diversity is all about. But it really becomes very apparent that what the powers that be actually understand is power. So we are embarked in a little campaign to flex our muscle and make it impossible for anyone in the future not to appoint a Latino the next time around.
Well, with 30 million potential voters in the country, you have a great deal of power.
Well, that's what we're hoping to show, yes.
You were best known as public advocate in New Jersey. What does that mean? To our average viewers, public advocate is a position that may be somewhat unclear.
Well, unfortunately, I don't know if everyone is aware of the fact that the public advocate position has been abolished by Governor Whitman. The reason it's been abolished is because of the very point you're making. Unfortunately, the ones who receive the benefits of the work done by the public advocate don't really understand and see how the work was done for them. And because of that, they allowed the office to close down. But public advocate is really nothing more than the advocate on behalf of people throughout the state who might not necessarily have an opportunity to advocate for themselves or hire some rich lobbyist or be able to get to some influential legislator.
Such as who? What kind of groups might be represented by the...
Ratepayers, which affects everybody in this state. We actually appeared before the rate setting commission in this state, the BPU now, and every time an industry, including cable companies and electric companies, wanted a rate increase, we would be the representative of the people opposing, or at least trying to make sure that any increase was reasonable.
So all utility increases,
all
cable
telephone,
industry...
you got it. That was one group.
Well, who's there to represent the people now?
Well, they came up with some kind of mixed hybrid in the same department that controls the rate setting. In other words, when the utility goes into the BPU and seeks a rate increase, they've now created this arm within the BPU to look out for the interest of the consumer.
So the trier of the facts is also an advocate on behalf of the people?
Not the trier of the facts, the judge, okay? They're the ones that ultimately make the judgment. The judges now have at their disposal an entity which is supposed to give them advice on behalf of the consumers. I find that a little bit problematic. Yeah. But that's one kind of group. Senior citizens in the state, the disabled, the mentally ill, beachgoers. One of our most famous cases were the beach cases. I mean, where the towns along the Jersey Shore for years believed that they could charge anything they want for the right to have somebody get on their beach. Well,
and the public advocate took issue with that?
Well, not only took issue, we sued every single municipality up and down the shore. The beaches do not belong to those towns. The beaches belong to the people of the state of New Jersey. All the people. They hold it in trust. And we wanted to make sure that it's okay to charge a reasonable fee to cover your expenses, but it wasn't okay to make money off of the rest of us for their own individual municipalities. So we sued and won. As a result of that, the beach fees have gone down tremendously over the years. Now that we're not there, watch. In 2 or 3 years, we're going to see those beach fees going through the roof in terms of the cost to take a family for a nice, pleasant day of
New
sun.
Jersey was the first state to implement this public advocacy.
New Jersey is the only state to have the public advocate, was the only state at the level it has it. Now,
as a cabinet position.
That's right. That's not to say that other states don't have entities that do perform similar functions. They just don't have it at the cabinet level. New York City, for example, just recently, as we are abolishing the public advocate, New York City now has created a public advocate. Right. In other states, you have what are called ombudsmen.
Yes.
In other words, in other states, some of the functions are performed a little differently. We were the first one to have a cabinet level position.
So with Governor Whitman's abolishment of this public advocate's office, what's there to replace it?
Well, goodwill. And that to me is an oxymoron, given the fact that the public advocate was created because it was clear that there was a lack of goodwill. Legislators like to say they represent the people and no one else is needed.
Right.
Well, as we all know, we have well-intentioned people who go into public service, but unfortunately they don't always do what some segments of the community would like them to do. They don't always advocate on behalf of the people who need the advocacy the most. They advocate usually on behalf of, unfortunately, those who actually have enough advocates on their own.
Do you have any plans for public office yourself?
It's interesting. It's something that I play with every once in a while. I get tempted. I like I like public service. I believe in public service. I'm not one of those who believes that all politicians are rotten and the politics are bad. I think the fact of the matter is that there are a lot of good people in politics. I met a lot of them, and it's tempting. It's tempting.
You know, I'm a certified public accountant and a certified fraud examiner, and my interest lies in white-collar scams and white-collar crime. Have you come across any such scams as the public advocate?
You know, there was something that I had come across that we were pursuing a little before I left that I never got a chance to really go after. It was one of these scams where they're telling people about winning prizes through the mail, and all you have to do is call up. And
Sure, we've all gotten those letters in the mail which says all you have to do is call and win a free trip.
But you know what? I came across one that came as close as one could possibly come to saying that you have the prize. In other words, the way most of these scams work is that they use language which allows them to get out from under the effects of a contract. Well, I came across a situation, and my mother received a letter, by the way, which was interesting. I came across a letter that actually said...
We should tell our viewers, if you're planning a scam, don't get the public advocate's mother involved.
But it actually said to the effect of, all you have to do is call, and guess what? It's there. I mean, and I was looking at that, trying to make some phone calls to see if we could do something with it, but never got much further.
You've recently been appointed of counsel to a law firm in Warren. Tell us about
Yeah,
that.
I've joined
the name of the firm?
Ventantonio and Wildenhain. Jim Ventantonio is a dear old friend of mine who worked with me at Seton Hall Law School when I first started. He started a little firm, and he and I have decided that we wanted to join forces to see if we couldn't branch out into the international arena a little bit with this new opening of markets that we have south of the border. It's an area that I'm fascinated by, so that's what we're going to be trying to do.
That's as a result of this NAFTA agreement?
Yes, but even more so. I mean, you know, this has been coming for a very long time, even without NAFTA. The fact of the matter is the United States has had to look south of the border to open up the markets for our products.
Do you have time being president of the Hispanic National Bar Association?
No, and right now I cannot do that, but I will leave office very soon, and after that my time will be back to being my own time and my family's time.
Terrific. This is Sam Rosenthal for the White Collar Crime Report. We'll be back in just a brief moment with Wilfredo Caraballo. Thank you. Hi, this is Sam Rosenthal for the White Collar Crime Report. With me this evening is Wilfredo Caraballo, president of the Hispanic National Bar Association. Fred, recently an article in the Interpress newspaper says 6 national bar associations in the United States agreeing that the U.S. justice system is flawed today sought ways to outlaw racial and ethnic bias. Your organization was part of those 6. Tell us about that.
Well, you know, it's finally dawning on people that the only way the system is going to work is if everyone agrees and buys into the fact that the system needs to work. And what we're looking at is some of the impediments.
By system, you mean the justice system?
The justice system, absolutely.
Right. Well, there's certainly a lot of flaws in the justice system.
That's right. And what we're trying to figure out is what those flaws are. And one of the most critical flaws that we, who happen to be people of color, see immediately is the fact that the face of justice isn't always reflective of us. And in fact, when justice sees our face sometimes, it fails to provide what it's intended to provide. Yeah. So what we've attempted to do is try to zero in on some some ideas and some notions that we have about this, and try to find ways of remedying that fact. You know,
The article goes on, I just want to
Yeah,
interrupt
sure.
you for a minute. The article goes on to say, Wilfredo Caraballo, a Puerto Rican who grew up in New York's impoverished South Bronx, recalls having two battles with the same judge. On both occasions, the judge insisted that a white client and not Caraballo was the attorney.
Yeah.
Now, that's incredible to me.
Yeah, well, not
That's
only
sad also.
Let me just tell you. Let me go one step further. It wasn't as if my client was wearing a suit and I was in jeans. I was wearing the suit. In the first instance, my client had a beat-up T-shirt, torn. He was disheveled. He actually had some swollen parts about his face. And because he was white, the judge assumed it made no difference what he looked like. He must have been the lawyer. Yeah, that's a little sad and debilitating.
Yes.
But it's those kinds of stories that we're looking at to say to people, look, this happens and we need to address them. Because if we don't address them, the consequences are too grave. And that is, we don't believe in the justice system. And when we don't believe in the justice system, it can't work.
Well, racism is a fact of life.
Yeah.
How do you abolish racism in the criminal justice system or in any system?
You don't abolish, but you can create mechanisms to deal with with those who try to perpetuate the racism. I cannot do anything about how you think, but I'll tell you what, I can do something about the way you act. And to the extent that we can, in fact, make sure that people act a certain way and don't act in other ways, then we can at least start creating a climate where maybe we can start talking to each other. And after we talk and meet and maybe even share a little bread, who knows? I mean, it's amazing the things that can happen in life, you know?
Right, you never know. And how do you intend to monitor these behaviors of judges and prosecutors?
Well, the ABA is one of those 6 bar associations, and what the ABA has committed itself to do, which is, for us, extremely important, is to take within those areas that it has specific control of lawyers and mandate certain kinds of things. For example, prohibit certain kinds of racist behavior, prohibit certain kinds of biases that are planted deeply within the way that people act, and then also on the moral level try to talk up front and forcefully about why it's important that we all buy into the system. So that is the first step, getting the strongest lawyer association in the country to acknowledge the problem and start trying to deal with its membership concerning those problems.
Well, that sounds like a very important step.
Yeah,
Is the membership of the American Bar Association predominantly non-people of...
Oh, absolutely. I don't know if you understand the reason why. I mean, listen, the ABA, until I don't know how many years ago, did not allow African Americans into its membership. Consequently, prohibited. Consequently, the African Americans in this country started the National Bar Association back in 1925 because they were not allowed into the white ABA. Hispanics who were white, you know, they could get in. If you were black, you couldn't get in. They had prohibitions against people of color being able to be members. So we have these other organizations that started as a result of that. Now it's amazing because they call on us, all right? And we work together because they don't want to be.
the Hispanic National Bar Association.
Yeah, and they don't want to be seen as racist. And they're taking steps to avoid being seen as racist. And very positive steps, actually. I mean, I'm very pleased with the current leadership of the ABA and next year's president. These are people who really care about this issue and have reached out to us and are working diligently at trying to see if we can't do something about the problems.
Does that also extend to the New Jersey Bar Association here in New Jersey? And
The New Jersey Bar Association is a member of the ABA as an entity, so it's one of its affiliates. So hopefully some of the effects will be seen.
Some of that filters through, and the same with the New Jersey Hispanic
Absolutely.
Bar
The
Association.
New Jersey Hispanic Bar Association is one of our affiliates as the Hispanic National Bar.
There's an article that discusses something you did as state public advocate. It says you promoted school desegregation in Englewood and attacked state laws that give New Jersey municipalities the right to pay another town to accept its share of low-income housing.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah,
What
those are 2 issues that are critical. You know, one of the problems that we have in New Jersey is that we're really one of the most divided states in the country.
Divided in what way?
Racially. New Jersey, for African Americans, is statistically, the 4th most segregated state in the entire country. I mean, there are southern states, like Mississippi, which are more integrated than New Jersey. Now, I got to tell you something. If I were a white New Jerseyan, I wouldn't like that statistic, okay? As a Latino New Jerseyan, I hate that statistic because it's even worse for Hispanics. We're the third most segregated, okay, for Hispanics. Now, the reasons are basically housing patterns, where we've had towns that have created all kinds of regulations that didn't make it possible for people of color, who would tend to be in the lower economic categories, to move into those towns. As a result, we've got deeply segregated towns. Our school systems, as you know, in this state, are grounded on local towns. We have more school systems in New Jersey than Texas. I don't know if you know that.
No, I didn't know that.
Oh, we have more than any state in this country by far.
Is that because we have more municipalities?
Yeah, and local law. Everybody's into this local control stuff, you know, local rule. So every little town has its own school system. Now, if the housing patterns are segregated, what's going to happen to your schools?
Our schools, of course, will be segregated.
And where is it that you and I as people get the one real opportunity to interact?
Right. School is
School.
right, yeah.
Because it's not work. At work, we've got other problems. We've got competition. We see each other as people who may, in fact, destroy our ability to move forward. Schools, especially for the young. I mean, where kids start off, you know, we create races. Children aren't born racist. We create them. Our schools are segregated because our communities are segregated. So one of the things that the public advocate did, and I in particular took on, was the idea of trying to remedy this. And the only way to remedy is to start looking at what's actually going on. One of the things that I oppose is some of these regional contribution agreements. It perpetuates segregation.
Tell us about
A regional contribution
regional
agreement means that a suburban town, which has an obligation to build low-income housing, can avoid part of that obligation by paying an urban setting, or let's say non-urban but minority community, a certain amount of money for that community to build housing. Now, it's a good thing in one sense because it helps.
Sounds outrageous.
Well, but it's good because it helps the local towns develop its housing stock, rehabilitate its housing stock, bring in new housing stock, and that's good for the Newarks, for the Trentons. You can't be against something that's good for Newark, good for Trenton. The problem I have is that it also keeps us in Newark, and it keeps us in Trenton. And there's some of us who would like to say at some point in our lives, you know what, I'd like to go out. And while I think it's important that some stay in Newark, I think we should be free to move around the state. So that's my problem with the regional contribution agreements. It perpetuates the status quo. If the status quo is segregation, then that's what it's perpetuating.
And how do you avoid that?
By forcing towns to meet up to its obligations to have
To establish its own low-income housing.
Affordable housing, exactly.
Affordable
right up and
housing
down.
in their own, in the
That's
suburb,
right.
in white suburbia.
That's right.
And that would create some integration level in the schools.
You got it. I mean, if we live near each other, then, as you know, the domino effect takes place. And you know, that's what they fear, some people, that the domino effect might mean that, they take over. I mean, I hope people can see it in a positive way, but unfortunately, when you talk about schools and homes, guess what happens? Nobody wants to talk about it. It's all hysteria.
Well, the concept of local school boards governing the schools is a strong one in New Jersey, and this recent Supreme Court case that we've had in New Jersey establishing more parity within school systems might help some of that.
Well, but you know, if you think about it, it's just again, what it does is it says that what exists has to be better. But it says it's what exists has to be better. That case does not deal with integration. It deals with no issues of segregation. All it deals with is the money and the use of money to improve the quality of education in the towns as they exist, in the low-income towns. And by the way, that is extremely important because until we can address the larger issue, we need to address these issues. We need to be able to improve the quality of the education that is being given to our kids.
You're in favor of a voucher-type system, right?
It's not a question of in favor. No, I've actually taken the following position. I don't know if I'm in favor. And in fact, in the final analysis, I might even oppose it. Might. But I'm not one of these knee-jerk individuals who believes that you have to take a position against or for everything simply because there's some kind of philosophical imperative that you do that. To me, It's an idea. All ideas that are offered in good faith are worth discussing, worth debating. And those who are proponents have the duty to bring forward why they believe it's a good thing, and those who are opponents have the duty to bring forth why they're opposed to it. I don't know what the answer is, but I'm willing to explore it. I'm willing to discuss it. I believe that when the mayor of Jersey City, whom I don't know personally, but who I read about, when he's proposed this idea, I believe he's done it in good faith. And for those of us who are pro-education, pro-public schools, to simply take a knee-jerk reaction, I think is abhorrent. I mean, I can't fathom that.
The public schools have been battered recently, especially the public schools in the urban areas.
Yeah.
Newark public school system has been chastised by the state. The state's been making attempts to take over the school systems despite the local residents. How do you feel about that?
You know, I got to tell you, I am not a proponent of Big Brother. I don't necessarily think that big government or that government has all the answers. But I have some questions, as does everyone else, about the school, the quality of education when you get the kinds of test scores that you get. And I don't know if the answer is a takeover, but I'll tell you what, somehow, somewhere along the line, somebody's got to take seriously the task of educating our kids. We're losing these kids from day one in the classroom. And for anybody to take any kind of extremist position is, to my mind, losing sight of the fact that it's that kid who counts. I don't like school takeovers because I think that the idea of somebody from Trenton running somebody's local school is just not a good idea. On the other hand, if you're against a takeover, come up with a lot better ideas than the ones I've been hearing. Don't just mouth.
These schools just ain't performing.
That's right, and don't just mouth, no takeover, no takeover. Give some substance, because the kids need it. The kids are the ones that are being lost, not the administrators, not the teachers, not the principals, not the board members. The kids are the ones that are being lost. That, to me, means we've got to take that very seriously.
Fred, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
This is Sam Rosenfarb for White Collar Crime Report. With me tonight has been Wilfredo Caraballo, former public advocate of the state of New Jersey, currently Seton Hall law professor. Thank you, Wilfredo.
Thanks,
You've
Sam.
done a great job. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Thank you.